On this episode of Locked On Canadiens, Armia and Jake Evans may have just gotten someone in Nashville fired.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to episode 1199. We are so close to our next milestone of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, including here on YouTube. Doing that supports the show and make sure you don't miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined by Laura Saba in our second game of the Laine era. Montreal Canadiens have not lost. How are we feeling?
The Laine era is good. I'm liking this era. This is an era I could live in.
For sure. 2018 me is so vindicated right now. Like, I wish I could go back and tell him, just keep doing what you're doing. You're right. You are right about this. And the world will know soon. It feels really great to have him on the team. We'll break that down as we break down the Montreal Canadiens 3-0 shutout win over the Nashville Predators. In our second segment, we want to dive a little bit deeper on two of the best players in this game, Armia and Jake Evans, who were dominant from start to finish and really helped Montreal solidify that win. And then we're going to jump into our mailbag. We've got some questions surrounding the Four Nations tournament, and we want to wonder, especially after a game like this, is Sam Montembeault Canada's starter when that tournament kicks off? But we start with the game on Thursday night, Montreal at home against the struggling Nashville Predators. And I opened the episode the way I did because this was Nashville's sixth straight loss. They have been brutal to start the year. This feels like the kind of game that gets somebody fired, does it not? It feels like, man, you go into a big Canadian market and you lose like that, and you've got an L6 next to your name on the standings. It seems like something has to give, no?
Something is going to happen. There is going to be a shakeup because they made such a splash in the offseason. People were declaring them the Stanley Cup winners, the offseason Stanley Cup winners.
I was doing that. I thought they did some great stuff this offseason, and none of it's worked.
I agree with you. I thought it was great. I was jealous. I was literally a bunch of guys called each other and said, let's join this team. It'll be cool. And usually that means it's going to be a fun season. And that's not what happened.
No.
And so I do think that somebody's head is going to roll, particularly when you do something like that. You make such a big splash, you're expecting results, and the results you're getting are abysmal. But that is not to take away from how good the Canadiens were in this game.
Yeah, if you want, I would imagine Locked On Predators is going to be pretty fun to check in on in the next few weeks. So if you can, go make them your second listen as well.
Absolutely. They are fantastic people.
Yeah, I don't wish bad teams on good folks, but that's the way of the world sometimes.
So give them hits.
yeah, exactly. At least, go hit their channel up. I think it's important to note why we think that that's the case, that Nashville might be in some trouble here, because coming into this game, I believe there were two teams below them in the standings. The Montreal Canadiens, who, for all that it's worth, at least the vibes seem pretty good right about now. That's not like a lot of teams in the situation that they're in can't say that. A lot of teams in the league, even the ones that are doing somewhat well, are all angry. Like the Rangers, for example, like are in a playoff spot and they just seem to be really upset. And the other team that's below Nashville is Chicago, who on Thursday fired their coach. So it just seems like the next logical step for Nashville would be to start shaking things up. But like I said, go check out Locked On Predators for that. We need to get into the Montreal Canadiens. Patrik Laine again scoring a power play goal, the first 5-on-3 goal for the Montreal Canadiens in over 2 years. The last one to do that. If you listen to this show, you know that because it was a trivia question a few weeks ago. It was Arber Xhekaj against the Edmonton Oilers, and Patty Laine does it in a very similar fashion to the way he did it on Tuesday night, that patented wrist shot. What do you like about him on the power play? It seems like it has a different dynamic to it with him there, right?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing is that he seems to be just smarter than the defenseman on the ice, if that makes sense. It seems like he's seeing the game, and this is the thing, he's not that old, right? Like, he's in his prime. I would not call him a veteran. I would call him still in his prime.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I'm like, that's a hockey talent thing, right? He's just intelligent enough to pull it off. Now, what I'm really hoping is that this rubs off on all the other guys, because maybe the last 10 years, can you fix the Habs power play has been literally a meme, right? Can you fix the Habs power play? Like I said once, it was on my dating profile at one point. Turns out that, back in whatever 2018, when Ian asked this question, can Patrik Laine fix the Habs power play? The answer was yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that for me, one of the most exciting things is that it doesn't seem like him and Caulfield are cannibalizing each other for opportunities. They're both getting looks.
Yeah.
Yes, they're both getting looks. They're not, one of them is not sitting in that half wall the entire time. They're moving around the entire time. At the beginning of that 5-on-3, Laine was in the slot. He was in the slot waiting for pucks in the middle, probably to be the finisher on a bumper play. But they're like, the fact that they're not cannibalizing each other for chances, and it gives Lane Hutson another weapon to get the puck to, something that both of Laine's goals have come off of the stick of Lane Hutson, something that I was on for a while, saying that I cannot wait to see these guys play together because I feel like they're going to do some really great stuff.
Because how many more goals can Lane Hutson put on someone's stick and they miss?
Yeah.
Or they win.
Laine won't, not that often. And because the whoever is penalty killing for the other team, because they have to focus on now both Laine and Caulfield, they have to make a choice. They cannot send everybody at one player anymore. So it's really just given the Canadiens an added level to that power play. I do want to talk about Laine's line, the second line with Slafkovsky and Dach. I thought tonight they played the heaviest game they've played in a while. Mm-hmm. They were getting down low. They were knocking guys over. I thought Slav was fantastic for most of the night, still making a couple of those blind backhand passes at the blue line that give Marty even more gray hairs. But like, I thought generally speaking, that line was really good. I thought Dach took a really big step forward because he's starting to play really heavy now. Is my excitement about this second line warranted, or am I jumping the gun a little bit here?
I think the biggest key is Kirby Dach, right? Like, he seems to have found something that's working, which I think he was searching for before, right? Like, when we always talked about how lost he looked, and we said that we needed more from him, but the more was never effort. The more was more just, figure out what you're doing out there. Try and ask yourself the right questions, right? Answer those questions. And it looks like he's doing that. He's found something that's working for him. And in that way, he's taking on a burden that Patrik Laine does not need to take, right? And Slafkovsky is remembering how effective he is at that. And so I think, to me, like, that's the biggest thing. And it's also possible, obviously, Slafkovsky's like recovering from whatever mysterious injury he had that he was playing through. Like, that's also possible. But I just think giving Kirby Dach a purpose. We had a fantastic listener question last week about giving him more responsibilities and seeing if it'll work. I think giving him a purpose is working.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think giving him a reason to get heavier and play a bigger, a more physical game is opening up his game. I think it was Arpon Basu in The Athletic had an article just over the last day or so about how someone in the organization brought Juraj Slafkovsky into their office and kind of gave him the business for how he needs to start playing. And then they weaseled it out of him. It was Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes had a big conversation with Juraj Slafkovsky, and he seems to have handled it really well. I think he's handled a lot of the pressure that's been sent his way really well. The last thing I want to mention before we move into our second segment, where we're going to give the fourth line in our penalty kill some real love, is the guy that we've talked about probably every episode since I joined this show, which is Mike Matheson. There were two moments in this game that I think helped the Canadiens win this game, and they were peak Mike Matheson plays. The one where he's coming out from behind the net and he skates the puck right in front of his own net in the most dangerous way possible, and thankfully draws a penalty in doing that. And there was another one, they were shorthanded, and he just decided, I'm skating the puck out of the zone. Did your heart skip a beat watching those plays as mine did, and then also realize that Mike Matheson's just really good at that?
I kept thinking about how yesterday you said you didn't want to be talking about Mike Matheson every episode. And then I saw that and I was like, we're going to have to talk about him.
when he does these things and they hit, he's a good
so
player.
Good.
I think they should not let him pass the puck out of his defensive zone. When he's in the zone, he should act like it's glued to his stick. Yeah. Just move your feet. If I could skate like Mike Matheson, that's what I would be doing all the time. But I can't. And not many people can. He's very, very good at it. So a big thumbs up to Mike Matheson, and all the haters will just have to live with that. All right. We have to move on to our second segment where we are going to give, I think, the two best players in this game their flowers, and they deserve it, in Yoel Armia and Jake Evans. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we are back. And we are back to talk about two of the goal scorers in this game. In Jake Evans, who scored, he opened the scoring for the Montreal Canadiens with a shorthanded goal. And Yoel Armia, who added an empty netter, but he also had an assist earlier on in the game. I really enjoyed watching these guys play on Thursday. They've been playing well for a while now. Jake Evans has been playing well above his role. He's been on the second line, which is just, it's cool that he did it, but we shouldn't be expecting him to do that for any extended period of time. And wouldn't you know it, he gets put back on the fourth line in that bottom six role, and he can play a bottom six role with other bottom six players. And that line ruled. It was so good. And they were so instrumental on the penalty kill. They had to kill a 5-on-3. They had to kill another penalty after that. The game kind of hung in the balance there. Yes, they were up 2, but Nashville pops any 2 of those in. They throw a wrist shot from the blue line that bounces off 8 bodies and goes in. And we're talking about a different game. What is it about Yoel Armia and Jake Evans that makes them so effective at what they do?
I think when we stopped, and when I say we, I mean the organization as a whole, stopped expecting too much of them, it really, really brings out the best in them, which is weird to say because you've seen them move up and down the lineup, particularly Jake Evans being given an assignment that's out of his depth. But I think in that moment, nobody was expecting him to do anything but just hold the line, right? So when you're putting him back in a situation where it's not just hold the line, but it's excel at the thing we know you're good at, he's really thriving. And it's the same thing with Yoel Armia. I think Yoel Armia a couple years ago had just kind of faded and given up, right? The fact that last year he was able to prove to himself that he still had value. Mm-hmm. Sending him to Laval was a wake-up call, and he never looked back when he got back here. Like, it was, I think, to me, like, he just had to have that, like, honest assessment of his own ability and not try to do too much. Because if both of these players are not trying to do too much, they're succeeding so well. And I think, like, that's another thing. I know we're not going to talk about him today necessarily, but I do also want to not necessarily eat my words, but give some praise to Josh Anderson. It's the same thing with Josh Anderson. Once he stopped trying to do too much, it worked out.
Yeah, I think with Anderson especially, once they stopped trying to make him into a player that he isn't, and they just said, Josh, just go play north-south. He can do that so well. Yes, it's the cap hit, his salary. When they hit the ice, that doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't change the type of player that he is. It should change your expectations for how well they execute that role. But like, Josh Anderson's a perfect example of a role player playing a role and doing it well. And he's done it well all season. Josh Anderson has not really had many bad nights this year. And it's because he's playing very simple. He's going north-south. He's using his body to shield the puck. That's something that we didn't see a lot of him doing because he wasn't really moving his feet. He's just getting the puck and not letting other people have it. Like he's being kind of a jerk with it, which is awesome. Like if he's being a jerk, we're really good shape. But back to Armia and Evans, because both of these guys are unrestricted free agents. We kind of talked about Jake Evans and how Montreal should probably entertain the idea of re-signing him. Yoel Armia is probably not there. He's 3 years older than Jake Evans. He's 31. Jake Evans is 28. But has Armia moved his way to the top of the Canadiens trade bait board as players that like could bring in Montreal a haul?
Everyone's going to get mad at me, but I still think the top one in that is Jake Evans.
Really?
Yeah.
I just don't think. I think there's less of a chance they trade Jake Evans than there is Yoel Armia. I would agree with you that Evans is probably more valuable.
Here's the thing, though. What if you're getting a haul and then you're re-signing the player in the offseason? Now, there's never a guarantee that you're going to re-sign that player. Even if when you're shipping him out, he tells you he wants to come back. He might like it somewhere else. He might get offered more money somewhere else. But I think, and the youth is one thing, it's the profile too, right? So Yoel Armia's profile might be raised after the Four Nations Cup, which is what we're hoping for. And we are hoping for a haul, but I still think that at the top, because of the worth, the value of the contract, not necessarily the dollar sign, but the value of the contract is so much better with Jake Evans. But I still think that Armia, we're going to get calls about Armia. I still think that there's a possibility both might get traded. And I also think that there's a possibility that they both get traded and also re-sign in Montreal.
I would like that, especially like if they came like, let's talk Jake Evans' contract really quick, because like what does it look like for him? It's tough to know because the salary cap is forever expanding now, because the players have paid off their escrow and now the cap is allowed to grow at a rate that is sort of difficult to understand. Like
we just let other people do the math.
Yeah, but I'm a numbers guy, not a dollars guy. That doesn't really mean much to me. I kind of like the idea of taking the contract that Yoel Armia signed, the 4x4 or whatever it was, and giving that to Jake Evans this time around. Because yes, $4 million sounds like a lot now. It's a lot less in the next few years when that cap is a lot bigger. Like, we're going to have to restructure the way we think of fourth line contracts.
Yeah, 100%. Particularly when you're not talking replacement level. Like right now, you know what he's making? He's making 1.7.
Yeah, he's going to want a pay raise, and he's going to be,
worth it,
justified in getting one.
He's gonna deserve that. And so, when you're talking about 4x4, it really is like the $4 million of today is the 1.5 of 7 years ago, right? I think it's absolutely worth it, particularly because right now they've got like a problem with their goalies. It's not like they're going to be spending $10 million in that position right now, right?
Yeah.
So things are going to be cheap for a while. You re-sign Jake Evans.
Yeah, I think so too. Armia is a little bit of a tougher sell because I think he'd be looking not for one last payday, but he'd be looking probably
for a bit longer, I think.
It's probably his last shot to get a longer deal. He's 31, right? Like his earning years are coming to a close as far as, NHL salaries are concerned. So he might be a tougher one to bring back because he's probably going to want to go somewhere. And again, he's earned the right to do so. Go somewhere, make more money for a longer term, and let the rest figure itself out. But I feel like Evans would want to come back. I feel like they could make that work. I wonder if they are trying to make that work. If they're trying to talk over a contract right now, we would never know until it's signed, right? We didn't know that they were trying to sign Slavkovsky.
Kent Hughes will come out and be like, "Yeah, we've been talking since October."
yeah, no, it's they keep things tight-lipped around there, which is I know Kent Hughes knows. Kent Hughes knows players well. He knows what players want. I would imagine that players having their contract negotiations getting leaked out is kind of a big deal to them. They don't really like that.
They don't want that.
I mean, no, because look at like what happens in Toronto and Boston, where players' contract negotiations get leaked and it's used to villainize the player.
And then the player sits out, and then
and then you fire your coach in your centennial season. Yeah, that's
always a good time.
Stuff. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I just think that the way that they play, especially on the penalty kill, which Montreal has the number one home penalty kill in the league right now, which
is weird. Montreal has number one anything is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that the only one we've wanted over the last few years was lottery odds. That's anything else has been weird. For them to have turned around both of their special teams at the rate that they did is incredible. And it's because of players like Cole Caulfield and now Patrik Laine and Lane Hudson and now Yoel Armia and Jake Evans being able to capitalize on their strong play on the power play. It feels good. It feels good that these guys are finally being rewarded after, I mean, all of these guys have been here through the bad years, right? Like they've all had to sit through garbage and now they're here and they're getting to play big roles on units that matter.
Yeah.
Which is, when we talk about like culture and winning cultures, that's what matters. It's not so much the wins and losses. It matters that they have a good penalty kill now.
Yeah.
So really great stuff from those guys. And we're going to get into our mailbag next. We have some questions, especially, and we have a contest to announce. Thank you, Laura. We'll announce a contest in our third segment, and we'll get into that in just a minute. All right, we are back. Laura, before we do the mailbag, do we want to talk about the contest first? Do you want to set this up for our listeners?
Absolutely. So it's Spotify Wrapped season. And last year we had a bunch of people show us their Spotify Wrapped, showing us we were in their top 5 podcasts over the course of the year. So we want to leverage that for a contest, but we wanted to include everyone else as well. So here's what you do if you're on Spotify: is you send us your Spotify Wrapped. If we are in your top 5, you are entered for this contest. And then if you're on any other podcast app that doesn't have a year-end stat aggregation, because I know some of them do and some of them don't, then leave us a review and send us a screenshot of the review you are leaving with the date, obviously. And this contest is going to be open until Christmas. So until our Christmas break, we'll be taking a couple of days off around then. So let's say when we come back, hopefully Canada Post will be back as well, because we have a prize, and the prize is a signed picture of Carey Price, and it's not an 8x11, it's an 11x13.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. It's so big that Ian doesn't fit in the screen at the same time as the picture.
Yeah, which makes sense. I should never be in the same frame as this guy, to be quite honest. So you need to take this away from me. So enter our contest. You can send those pictures of your Spotify Wraps to our Instagram at Locked On Canadiens, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, or on Blue Sky. You can send them to us there as well. And if you don't have those, you can leave a review on Apple or anywhere that you get your podcast. We'll do our best to find whatever ones we can, and that will enter you as well. So good luck. Please let us know, and it's a good opportunity for you guys to share the show as well. So thanks for your support.
And that's our contest. We're going to be repeating this every single day, so you won't forget.
Yeah, unless we forget, and then it'll be on the next episode. Yeah.
We did. Yeah. We wanted to start this contest yesterday, and we forgot.
Yeah. We just had too much fun talking about. I don't even remember what we talked about, if I can be honest with you.
3-on-3 overtime and rumor roundup.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the cowboy hat cut off the circulation in my head. That's what happened. All right, we have our mailbag though, so we'll move into that. We are a show for the people, by the people. We'll start with Matt Crawford. If playing in front of a hot goalie inspires confidence, what are the negative side effects of playing in front of a cold one, especially for developing players who need boosts of confidence? The TLDR here is Primo's play promoting bad habits in the young Habs. I love the beginning of that question was very hypothetical, and the end was what impact is Caden Primo having on this team, which is very funny and I think entirely reasonable. So Laura, I'll kick it to you first. What do you think about this?
So we talk a lot about players needing to be bold, right? Needing to be bold in the defensive zone, needing to be bold on the penalty kill, needing to be bold on the power play. And when we say bold, we mean aggressive. You need to play aggressive. You can't shrink, right? It's not just about throwing the body. It's about taking calculated risks. And when you are playing in front of a goalie that you don't trust, you're not taking any of those risks. Instead, you are trying to play an old school defense that the NHL has moved on from, right? Like the stay-at-home defenseman, the crouching around your goalie, that's not a tactic that works anymore, right? It's not something that is going to win you games. It's not something that's going to keep the puck out of your net. And it's also not something that's going to carry the puck out of your zone, up the ice, and into the offensive zone. So when you are playing in front of a goalie you don't trust, you're not doing any of the positive things. You are literally shrinking. And the other team is, at that point, has an advantage over you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think for me, the main thing is when you know you have a goalie that you can't trust behind you, you're probably looking for the perfect play instead of the good play. And when you look for the perfect play, you take too much time, you allow other teams to get in position, and oftentimes you double clutch, you hesitate, and you make a mistake. When you're playing behind a goalie or in front of a goalie who's on fire, you're not necessarily always looking for that because you're probably looking for the play that'll just, I know that he's behind me. I feel more confident that I can move the puck the way that I know how to move the puck.
And I'm going to take a risk.
Yes. And Marty's all about that, right? He's about having these guys take risks that are, substantiated with the thought of I can actually make this play. So I think that's a big part of this whole Kaden Primo discourse that probably gets left out a lot of the time. So thanks, Matt, for writing in. Danny Joe 22 on Blue Sky asks, excluding winning the cup, what is your hockey Christmas wish for 2025? What do you got on your what are you asking Santa for?
I'm going to say Laine Hudson goal.
Yeah, I think that's an easy one, right?
It sounds like it's too little. It sounds like I'm asking for socks when I'm being offered like an Xbox. But the Xbox is Laine Hudson winning the Calder.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. I think for me, it's continued health for this roster. The game against the Islanders was the first game in Marty St. Louis' tenure where he had a fully healthy lineup, which was already broken on Thursday because Caden Gooley had a tummy ache or something. I don't know what his illness was, so that's just what I'm going to say it is now.
Josh Anderson sushi leftover.
Yes, I was hoping you would bring it up. I was hoping that was still part of the fabric of this team. The Josh Anderson gas station sushi special. That's for these guys to stay healthy, right? Like I think that's been, if not the biggest contributor to their downfall the last few years. It's been 2 or 3, right? Like it's right there. This team being that banged up. So I think just them staying healthy would be enough for me to at least be able to say, hey, they were healthy and now we know this, right? Whether or not that's they suck or they can actually play remains to be seen, but we need to see them. That's the big difference here. Last one from Blue Sky, Francis Tardif. If you could bottle one feeling forever, would you choose Laine's first goal in Montreal, Hudson's first goal in the NHL, or Caulfield's first 50 goal season? I would imagine the 50th goal that he scores.
I am going to say the third one because not like all of these will bring untold joy, or the Laine one brought untold joy. And I think the biggest failing of this show is that we didn't have a camera on Ian during that whole game when Laine scored that first goal in Montreal.
Yeah, no one needs to see me cry, Laura. It's okay. That was I'm honest. Like the Laine goal was very emotional to me because I posted a lot about this too. I see a lot of myself in the way that he's dealt with his issues over the last year. For him to come out and say that putting that sweater on was an achievement of everything that's happened. It's why at both games since I'm wearing it right now. I'm literally wearing his jersey as we're doing this. Like that mattered a lot to me. Like that feeling for me will stick for a long time. That one hit home for me, which is really cool.
and it's not to discount anything you said because I don't have the same relationship with Patrik Laine as you do,
entirely
right?
personal.
Yeah. Right. And so for me, the personal is Cole Caulfield a little bit because of all the naysayers, because he's a short person and I'm a short person, because all of that. But also, like Laine Hudson scoring first goal in Montreal is going to be amazing. Like Patrik Laine's first goal in Montreal was amazing, right? But Cole Caulfield's 50th goal in Montreal will make a lot of people I don't like mad.
Yeah, for sure.
The high from that.
Yeah, the energy from the haters could fuel a large city.
Yeah, there you go. So that to me is the biggest one.
Yeah. All right. Last question we have time for today from Charles Westcott. What type of role do you see Montembeault playing in the Four Nations Cup? After a game like this one, seems like it's a reasonable chance that he's the starter, right? It seems like Kyle Dubas did his homework coming into Montreal all those times and not trading for Kirby Dach and instead looking at a goalie.
Yeah, and I think everybody's projecting him to be the third goalie, including us on our last episode. We talked about this, right? We talked about how Samuel Montembeault's reputation, or not reputation, but like lack of cachet, means that he's going to be the third string goaltender there. But the fact is, he came out today and he said, like a couple of years ago, I was on waivers, and now I'm chosen for my country, and between now and then, I'm going to do everything I can to prove that I should be the starter. And it looks like he is. So hopefully Team Canada's watching that, right? And I think he's doing such a good job. And also thank you, Charles Westcott. He used to send us questions on Twitter, but since we're not on Twitter anymore, he switched to Gmail. Everyone be like Charles, because we want your mail. And also, I know we will send this to the next week, but there is an email from a Roberts brother, and I just want to say once again, Nicholas, we want to hear from you. We've heard from the others so far. It's time for you to like surface.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned the brothers, because we have to get into our trivia question. And the answer was a brother. Good Sport 65 on YouTube had the answer. The question was Ryan O'Byrne. He had a goal. He had a first goal wearing the number 3 and a first goal wearing the number 20. One Montreal Canadian had an assist on both of those goals, both of those firsts. Laura, who was it?
It was Sergei Kostitsyn.
It sure was. And the wild thing to me here is the numbers of this all. His first, when he wore number 3, his first goal was on March 3rd, 3-3 at San Jose from Saku Koivu and Sergei Kostitsyn. His second goal, or his first goal wearing the number 20, was on April 3rd, a month later than his first one, but also on the 3rd from Dominic Moore and Sergei Kostitsyn, and they won 3-0 in that game. There's threes all over the place in this one, but it's also just fun to bring up Sergei Kostitsyn again, one of my favorites to talk about.
That was an era. I like the Patrik Laine era better, I gotta say.
Yeah, this one's got better vibes to it for sure. All right. This one is a patented name that guy. Montreal is playing Washington on Saturday night. So that is where we went with this one. Follow the career path. Washington, Dallas, Tampa Bay Lightning, LA Kings, Montreal, Washington again, Montreal again, Phoenix. I'll do that one more time because it is a mouthful. Washington, Dallas, Tampa Bay, LA, Montreal, Washington again, Montreal again, and Phoenix. You have the answer. Put it in the comments on YouTube. Send it to us via email or on Instagram or TikTok or anywhere else you communicate with us. If you get it right, we'll be sure to shout out the first one who gets it right on the show. But that's going to do it for us on this episode and this week for Locked On Canadiens. Thanks so much for tuning in and for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We've done a lot of social media plugs, and here's one more. Blue Sky, Locked On Canadiens. Laura's at the Active Stick. I'm at Maybe It's Ian. TikTok, at Locked On Canadiens. Instagram, at Locked On Canadiens. Gmail, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. You can find us everywhere. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back on Monday. Enjoy your weekend.